Next up, we'll hear a presentation from Nabiha Syed, Executive Director of the Mozilla Foundation.
Good morning. I know you guys are all awake. Some of you are caffeinating. I'm Nabiha Syed. I'm the Executive Director of the Mozilla Foundation. And at Mozilla, we are, shockingly, defiantly optimistic that the future of technology can actually be good, so long as communities are leading the way. Put differently, we don't want communities around the world to just be consumers of what they happen to get from a few folks in Silicon Valley. We want them to be creators of their own digital destinies. That animates our commitment to open source and openness generally. And so what that means is while lots of folks are obsessing over what's next in tech and what can tech do and AGI, we're obsessed with what you heard a little bit about in the last conversation, human agency. We're obsessed with humans and how we're serving humans with this tech. This feels especially important because there are sometimes fanciful projections about what's actually happening with the state of technology. So focusing on human agency and flourishing can keep us grounded. So with humanity in mind, listen, I love a good meme. I want to open with a story. I want to tell you the story of 23-year-old Fahad Maqsood Ghazi, developer in Hyderabad, Pakistan, where, like many of us, a little while ago, he was like, this AI stuff, let me poke around. Let me see what I can do. Let me see what's interesting here, right? And he lived in a community that had variable literacy rates. So he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make an AI transcription model. This could be really useful. It could be really helpful. And then very quickly, he realized that despite speaking a language, Sindhi, that was spoken by 40 million people, there was no data set for that. Sure, there's Mandarin, there's French, there's Spanish, no Sindhi. Right around that same time, halfway on the other side of the world, in San Jose, California, an engineer, Asad Memon, found Mozilla's Common Voice, which is a program that makes it really easy to spontaneously record your voice in whatever language you happen to speak, and it gets structured into a data set. Coincidentally, this happened at the same time. Fahad happened to stumble upon this data set, and with this infrastructure plus the voluntary labor of love from this other engineer, all of a sudden we have a data set in Sindhi. This project plus that volunteerism gave us the ability to reach 40 million speakers of Sindhi, and I want to share in Fahad's own words what that meant. Like, why did he do this, right? He said, a parent who doesn't know how to read Sindhi will now be able to have stories read out loud to their children through my text-to-speech model. Elderly people who never learned how to read or write Sindhi can now speak to search for information online and listen to responses. By giving Sindhi a presence in AI systems, we now have a presence in voice assistants, educational apps, audiobooks, and other translation tools. And this kind of use preserves my mother tongue and will keep it alive across generations. What could be more human than that? What could be more human than being able to have your children understand stories in your language, or having your grandparents search weird things on the internet? Don't know if that resonates with any of the rest of you. But for me, my family is from Karachi, Pakistan. While we didn't speak Sindhi, we spoke Urdu. I knew just how important it is to have the vibrancy of that language continue to exist. And this is what I love about our program, Common Voice. It is the world's largest public participation open speech data set, 300 languages, growing every day, powered by 750,000 volunteer contributors. Common Voice helps people get critical health updates via a chatbot in Rwanda. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, it powers a voice-enabled chatbot that helps women understand their legal land rights, and it improves health access for immigrants in Sweden. And in so many ways, these examples remind us of the original promise of the internet. Remember that crazy modem sound? Remember that promise, the excitement that we had about the potential of connection? There are days where that feels really far away. We don't always feel connected in the best of ways. But this allows us to bridge. And Fahad's story is actually not just about connection, right? It is about who gets to build. who gets a chance to build? Imagine if he hadn't found that data set. He might have been like, this isn't for me. I'm going to go build something else, right? Making sure that we have these on-ramps into letting people build what they want for their communities is important for the future of innovation that actually serves people's real needs, and it allows for something a little bit even more radical than that. Here's what I mean. Who in the room speaks 2 languages? All right. 3 languages? 4 languages? All right, Duolingo over here. What's having 4 languages? Fine. If you speak 2 or more languages, or even if you're familiar with the concept, you can understand that there are concepts and ideas that are live in one language and culture and not in another, right? These are just different ideas and concepts that are culturally and linguistically available. One of my favorites that I searched for years to find the word for is I wanted to find the word for joy in someone else's joy, the opposite of schadenfreude, also a word we had to borrow into English. And it turns out there's a Buddhist concept for that, mudita. There's a word in Welsh, haraeth, which describes a type of homesickness for a place you once had, or maybe have never even been, but desperately want to believe could be true, which is kind of how I feel about the American dream these days. Not too soon. Not too soon. There's words like lagom in Swedish, which means just right, not enough, not insatiable desire for growth all the time, just a feeling of it being enough. By opening up the ability for people to innovate in whatever language they speak is opening up the field for people to build in those ideas and build in those concepts into technology. Meaning innovation isn't just about having more and more and more products, but actually radically changing the ideology that underpins them. That is an extraordinary field for us to be playing in, and it is why it is so worthwhile to interrogate the training data that we have for AI now, right? Take the example of Common Crawl, which is a massive web data set scraped from the internet, largely low quality, and overwhelmingly dominated by English language content. The core backbone of a lot of the technology that we're seeing is focused on English. We need to change that. Common Voice is our start with community-led, consent-focused data sets. But what really excited me about being here in the morning with all of you is that in this room, we're in fellowship with people who are building these data sets that will underpin our AI future in totally different ways. We have Cece Wei from The Markup, who's using data sets for investigative journalism. We have the incredible grantees of the McGovern Foundation that are focused on data for good. We are looking at that data level to enable people to build in a different way. And that means that we'll have tools of innovation in the hands of people who actually want to connect, solve real problems, introduce different ideas, and not just extract and enrich for a few. So that's like Fahad, right? Now it was luck that he happened to meet Asad, right? That all happened to come together. I don't want to leave that to chance. And so at Mozilla, building on the success of Common Voice, we've actually been heads down busy working on something else, which is the Mozilla Data Collective. We are building effectively a GitHub for ethically sourced data for startups and developers who are like, you know what, I actually want to build a different kind of data, use a different kind of data set. I shouldn't have to endlessly search in order to find that. There should be a single place. Similarly, for artists, creatives, creators who are banding together to say, scraping our content from the internet without our consent, that's not okay, but we do want to have a place in this future. As they're banding together and creating their own data sets, there should be a place under their own control. They are able to share that with people who want to build in the right way. And so this is actually the first time I've been able to share this publicly. We've been head down working for a while, and we're pretty excited about what this future can bring. So I want to leave the last word with one of our organizers and our AI researchers about why this work matters so much. So we can go ahead and play the video. Thank you, everybody.
My name is Kathleen Siminyu. I am an NLP researcher focused on building for African languages. And I'm also a community organizer, and I've been working to build and support machine learning and AI communities on the African continent. As a data scientist, And in my first job, I discovered the gap that exists between Western languages and African languages in terms of language tools that exist. This gap only really exists because people have not focused on building for these languages, which is how I started doing what I'm currently doing. My work with Mozilla was on a project known as Mozilla Common Voice, the platform for building open speech recognition datasets, and it is also a dataset for open speech recognition data. So because the platform is open, literally any individual or community can start organizing and building a dataset on the platform for the languages that they speak. I focused on building for Kiswahili. It was very gratifying to be able to build this dataset from scratch, because often you enter the space of machine learning in general and your work is influenced by whatever dataset is available. So we really were very intentional about thinking about the characteristics that we wanted to be represented in the dataset and to ensure that we balance them out, knowing that imbalances in the data then lead to systems that are biased in one way or another. And at the end of the day, we wanted to be able to build tools that people can use in the way that they naturally speak and express themselves. And I think that this work was definitely a step in that direction.